Move is the platform that developers who care about money and safeness can trust. And it is the only platform that I would say that you can build safe code at scale in a decentralized world. So I argue you cannot build really safe code in any other platform that is not move based, because it's tailor made to manage money. And the virtual machine essentially gives you a lot of safety properties that are not afforded to you by the EVM or SVM or other models that exist today. And the key thing is our implementation of Move, the programming language, allows developers to be way more expressive. It also gives a lot of additional safety guarantees. It allows you to write programs by the way you're already used to writing applications. It's not trying to teach you a brand new paradigm, thereby which the developers are learning Move on SUI very, very quickly.
SUI may very well be the best blockchain to have ever graced the crypto space. And if you've been holding SUI or thinking about adding to that position, or maybe you're even wondering whether you should add SUI to your portfolio at all, then this is the video for you, because I'll be sharing some of the latest news surrounding SUI, some realistic price targets, and what happens next as markets continue to remain volatile. Now, there are many reasons SUI is a grade A player in the world of blockchain. First, it's extremely fast, scalable, and reliable, with a time to finality of 390 milliseconds, or the amount of time from when you click a button for a transaction to the time it actually settles on the blockchain. This is virtually faster than anything else out there, with a theoretical TPS or transaction per second time of 297,000. Its TVL, or total value locked, across all DeFi platforms has consistently been trending up. It was just at under $12 million over a year and a half ago and is now up to $1.2 billion. That is explosive growth. The team is absolutely stacked with some of the best engineers in the world, former Facebook employees, JP Morgan and banking employees. These are people who decided to build a completely new developer-friendly language called Move. And essentially, this has made the barrier to entry for so many developers a heck of a lot simpler and less demanding. Already, we're seeing loads of teams build unique and useful dApps or decentralized applications on chain. And we expect this trend to continue as more devs enter the blockchain space and then make a decision on where to build their platforms. And this really did show in the price, because since the beginning of August in 2024, SUI pumped to an all-time high price of $5.40 for a gain of almost 1,000%. Now, as with any other token, I've seen all sorts of price predictions that are insane. So for example, for SUI, this is usually to the tune of $150 to even $250+. However, none of these are realistic, at least not this bull market cycle. So what is and what happens next? Well, stay tuned, and as always, if you're feeling blessed and bullish, comment 777. And if you're going to be the wealthiest person in your family tree, smash the subscribe button. Hello and welcome back to the Bull Runners YouTube channel. If you're new here, you can find me on Twitter or X at PauliDeFi, PAULIEDEFI. Now, I want to cover some announcements and news before I dive into the price action and tell you what I believe is going to happen next for SUI, and also give you a price target. However, it's never 100% certain that any target is going to be hit, as markets are unpredictable, and ultimately you just have to pay attention to whether or not you're seeing strength or weakness at certain price targets and points. So that said, I've learned that I never want to hold on to a token because I believe it has to hit a price and then think about how rich I would be if it hits that price based on the amount of tokens that I own. I found that is a quick road to ruin. I made that mistake early on in my crypto investing career and will no longer make that mistake. In other words, I do have to remain agnostic, even with all of the very possible potential plays when it comes to the fundamentals, right? All of the good stuff that's happening on the back end to make SUI such a great blockchain, and how holding the SUI token gives you a piece of ownership in that ecosystem. So that said, The SUI team on SUI Network over at X posted that recently World LibertyFi, a Donald J. Trump inspired pioneering DeFi protocol, decided they will add SUI to their strategic token reserve. And this was pretty big news considering it actually made the price of SUI pump pretty hard from about $2.65 all the way up to almost $2.90 for a 14% gain upon that news. However, since that gain right up to this range right here, most of those gains have been clawed back and there still has been some profit taking. So what's actually going on? And are we close to a local bottom at the $2.46 range? Now, first, let's dive into a bit more news. And the reason I'm sharing this news is because I think a lot of newer players in the crypto space, or people who don't yet have a lot of experience, or maybe simply don't have the time to develop a lot of experience, usually see stuff like this, which makes them uber bullish. And they think because the fundamentals are happening here, it should reflect in the price. But then they get disappointed when the price fails to show any real growth while you have all sorts of great news. That said, Google apparently is on the main sponsor list for SUI Camp this year in Dubai, which is happening early May. And yes, it is true. Google may adopt SUI or use SUI in some way, shape, or form. Now, you're going to have players like A16Z and Binance, which are major fund managers and venture capitalists. You're going to have Franklin Templeton there. You're going to have Google there. So it's obvious with players like this is a legitimate project that likely has legs relative to the rest of the blockchains in the space. So much so that you even have Grayscale promoting their SUI trust and a few other players actually filing for SUI spot ETFs now. And I could think the reason why is because they're seeing consistent growth in this blockchain, as recently SUI hit a new all-time high in monthly new active addresses and finally surpassed 57 million total active accounts as of February 27th. And this has probably grown since that point in time with a few dips here and there. And to further confirm it, more and more stable coins are entering the blockchain as TVL grows, and it's now about to flip NEAR, which, as you can see on this green line, and we'll go ahead and make that a little larger, NEAR has remained really stagnant as a blockchain. It was consistently one of the best performers in 2020. However, it's lost a lot of traction and now is going to likely be overtaken by players that are up and coming like SUI. In other words, SUI is the dark horse in the race that is really starting to perform well relative to the rest of these major cryptos that typically even have larger market caps. And if that wasn't enough, SUI is actually doubling down on their mainstream adoption. And the way they're doing that is in a few different areas. First, they're actually creating a game console called SUI Play 0x1. And the way it's going to work is it's going to operate on the SUI blockchain. In other words, gamers can play on the go and freely trade in-game items inside of this ecosystem, and they're already onboarding all sorts of other really cool platforms, or I should say gaming studios like Steam and Epic Games, to blend their AAA games into this platform, and this will onboard millions of users into the SUI ecosystem without them even knowing it. This is actually really big news, guys. And it's the very first blockchain to do this at scale. Now, when they think about scale and how they're actually solving for this problem, they've found that it's extremely difficult to onboard your typical retail user or just your average normie who's not involved in the world of crypto, because it's very difficult for the majority of people to create a blockchain DeFi wallet and then go ahead and write their passkey or their seed phrase somewhere, remember it, log in, and figure out how to use it. Instead, what they're focusing on is creating a completely simple, passwordless, phishing-resistant authentication to still use the SUI blockchain in a safe manner. In other words, this is the easiest way to onboard Web 2 users by simply creating a password and then using something like a Face ID. SUI's passkey integration brings convenience, security, and gets us closer to mass adoption on global scale. No more need for seed phrases, no more phishing risks, just frictionless blockchain interactions in a Web 2 manner. This is the best way to onboard the average person worldwide. So with all of this really bullish news and the developments over at SUI, why is it that it's actually dumped from its local high, or actually all-time high, $5.36, all the way down to a current price of $2.46 for a 54% loss? And really, what's going to happen next? Are we going to experience this thing dump at least 75%? By the way, a 75% dump would take us right down to that $1.33 level. Now, one thing I've learned about crypto, it's that anything is possible. And just because something has a lot of really positive developments and news does not mean that the price has to reflect that. Sometimes you'll see a lot of positive developments while markets continue to sell off. And that's because they're voting machines. People are voting with their dollars. It doesn't mean that it's a bad blockchain. It doesn't mean that they're not actually doing these things. It simply means that for whatever reason, markets are selling into any single pump. And that's exactly what we're seeing here, especially when you look at the volume. As you can see here, the volume was really big and tremendous right on this day for a dip buy. And I'll go ahead and mark that day on the chart. But since that point in time, the market has continued to sell off below that major dip and that buy, which leads me to believe there are more sellers than buyers. And if there aren't more sellers, then there are fewer sellers with far more money in it. And so what's really going on? We also saw another major pump right here in terms of volume. However, again, that has failed to support the price. So are we near a local bottom? And if so, when are we going to pump? How high are we going to pump? Let's talk about it. The first thing that you want to pay attention to is the entire crypto space. And as you can see here, Bitcoin is by and far the largest crypto by total money in it, or market cap, at $1.7 trillion. And it's consistently outperforming the rest. This is actually the largest gap that we've ever seen between Bitcoin and Ethereum, which is actually lagging the market quite heavily and has consistently been underperforming everything else, which is sitting at $262 billion. Then you have number 3 Tether and number 4 XRP at almost half the market cap of Ethereum. I think if anything, at this moment in time, XRP could potentially even surpass Ethereum in market cap by this next bull run or the end of this bull run. However, when you scroll down by number 17, you can see SUI is sitting at about $7.8 billion. And at its peak, it was actually sitting at about $15.9 billion. So the real question you have to ask is, if you're willing to buy this token based on all those fundamentals and the news, at what price would it actually likely continue dumping to? If it continues to dump, where would you like to accumulate? And then how high could it go? Just looking at its all-time high market cap of about $16 billion, and that was at a price of about $5.36. And then you were to 4x that, it would take us to about a price of $21.44 right up here. By the way, that would make the market cap a rough $64 billion. Right now, we're sitting at $7.8 billion. From today's current prices, if the price pumped up to about $21 for a $64 billion-ish market cap, then that would give us about another 760% gain. And I think that is far more realistic for a price target this bull market, considering we've already seen it do a 900% gain. And by the way, now we're really selling off. We may see some support right down here in these levels and then break back out for new highs and a new all-time high, maybe even a potential top of between $18 to $21. How else I like to get this top is by taking a fib tool from the top of this range down to the bottom of this wick and dragging it up. And as you can see here, our 241 range is really close to that $21 target. So I'll go ahead and take a box tool here and just drag it across the top of this range right here. So I'll go ahead and drag it from the 272 up to the 241 and even that target, and then leave it right there, remove the rest of these drawings. And as you can see, this would probably be my bull market scenario target on the low end of $15, on the high end of potentially $22. And I'm not saying that it can't go to $100 billion. It's just that so few cryptos have ever done that. And although I think SUI could potentially do it, I don't know if it's going to happen this bull market cycle. This is going to be its first major bull market cycle as a newer crypto. And most of the time they require a few cycles to hit that. The only one that's ever hit this range up here or higher in its first cycle was Solana. But since then, the market has matured a lot and there's a lot of fragmented liquidity, which means a lot of the money is flowing across the board into major cryptos like XRP, like Solana, like SUI, like all of these other chains. And so the problem is all of it needs to concentrate, at least total money that we have in now, into a few blockchains, one, or two, we need a lot more users. And that's what SUI aims to do. But that's why my actual target is a bit more conservative, down to that $15 level and even potentially $22 level. And by the way, I am taking into consideration all of the foundational fundamentals that we just talked about. So if this thing remains strong and we see a lot of buyers step in at these lower ranges, then it's very much possible we hit this range. Now, how far are we actually going to dump? And I'll go ahead and take a line tool right here and just draw a target somewhere right here. I'll draw another target right here at the $15 level, and we'll just leave them at that for now. And let's focus on Bitcoin. I think the major reason that SUI has failed to perform is not because it doesn't have all those strong fundamentals, but because Bitcoin is actually breaking down. As you can see here, we have a range of support right here on Bitcoin at the prices of like $92,000 down to $90,000. And we actually touched this range one time, two times, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then finally on the 9th touch, we broke down. Again, what used to be a resistance becomes a support, and what used to be a support now becomes a resistance. So even on the Trump news, you can see here the price has failed to break above this range resistance. And I believe because we've actually fundamentally broken down and are now in an intermediate term downtrend where this was our range high, or we had a double top right here and then we had a support right here, what used to be a support becomes a resistance. And so now we have a new lower low, and we also have new lower highs. This is a textbook downtrend, even if on the intermediate term time frame. In other words, in a market where Bitcoin is failing to produce results, I can assure you, even the best blockchains, because they are so much smaller than Bitcoin, also get sold off by institutional investors, and that's exactly what we're seeing here. So at what prices can we expect a support? I'll go ahead and pull up a SUI chart that has a lot of data all the way back to its listing on May 3rd of 2023. And I'll go ahead and try to get out of the way for that right here. And I'll even remove this. As you can see here, May 3rd right here. And as you can see, we had quite a bit of resistance right here in these ranges of about $2.25 down to $1.76. And I can further confirm that with the VRVP. As you can see, we have a lot of volume traded in this range right here for a breakout. And when we broke out to a new all-time high. And for the first time on March 4th, we actually touched back down. But based on the current sell pressure and based on the fact that we are below our EMAs on the 10 and 20 time frame, and even getting a longer term time frame weighted moving average actually starting to flatline. As you can see, the last time we flatlined and actually came below, we continued to dump below this blue line pretty hard. I'm not saying that exact same thing is going to happen, but what I am saying is we're likely going to see some level of support right down here between the prices of $1.53 and upwards of $2. In other words, if I'm accumulating SUI, I'm actually not doing a ton of accumulation right now, as this is still looking really, really weak and below virtually every single major range, including our supports right up here at 360 down to $3, which leads me to believe we're likely going to continue breaking down to this $2 range and below. And at the $2 range, I will be accumulating, because if I accumulate, let's say at an average price of $1.75, and we do end up going to the $15 target, that's still a 700% gain on all of my investment. And on the upper end, let's say it hits like $21 to $22, that's an 1100% gain. So yes, I still believe we are in a longer term bull market. However, we are experiencing a bit of a lag, right? This is a long-term uptrend for Bitcoin with a bit of volatility, and Bitcoin might likely dump right back down to that $71,000 to $73,000 level. If it does, then SUI is extremely likely going down to like $1.50 to even $2. And so those are the ranges that I would like to accumulate into a longer term trend, and especially into the end of 2025. Now, with all of that said, if you enjoyed the video, you learned something new, and you'd actually like to be involved on live calls where you can ask me any questions every single Tuesday from now on, I will be doing those private calls only for our university members. All you have to do to sign up is go to bullrunners.com, check out the link in the description below, and once you're on the other side, not only will you be getting that, but you're going to get all sorts of classes and courses. You're going to be getting all sorts of DeFi opportunities and analysis from our team of experts and pros. We'll be sharing altcoin picks that could potentially 5x or even 10x or more, and we teach you everything you need to know to reach your crypto goals this year. Every single day you wait could be another day you miss out on an opportunity to absolutely change your life. So if you're taking your crypto journey seriously, this is the university for you. We teach you everything you need to know, from strategies and guides on crypto research tools, on when to buy and when to sell, a bull market strategy guide, tax tips and portfolio tips, yield farming guides, staking and doing DeFi and how to bridge money across these chains, how to avoid scams and getting rugged, and even getting ahead of the curve by taking advantage of narratives. How do you find a good narrative? How do you get in it before it actually occurs? And there is so much more. Go to bullrunners.com. You can find the link in the description below. Thanks so much for watching the video, my friend. Be sure to subscribe, and I will see you next time. Goodbye.